Hey, I'm Sara Gonzales. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Glenn, what was the top story for you?
Well, I'm battling today. I think I want to talk about the everything bubble.
Okay. All right, Stu.
We all know with the Democrats being in control of the House, they're at least going to talk seriously about impeachment. We have an interesting guideline about what is an impeachable offense, and it comes from a pretty interesting source.
All right. Can't wait. Jason.
The linchpin for chaos is already being pulled in places like Europe. And then we saw hints of something like that pulling here in the United States as well. Another development that happened today. Let's talk about that.
All right. Obviously, a lot to get into. But before we do that, I want to thank our sponsor, Riduzone. Guys, I want to tell you something. It's going to be very shocking.
Oh, no.
But I just want you to stay seated. I'm glad that you're seated. I had a gingerbread cookie today.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, you didn't even tell. I forgot to mention this. I forced her to eat a chili cheese tater tot.
I had one
just the other day,
tater tot.
but you ate it.
It was so good.
She was in the bathroom throwing up. You
heard me.
Yeah, no, I mean, do you just not like that stuff?
I love that stuff. I love it.
Gosh, you've got to.
I fantasize about it all the time.
You're afraid to go down those roads, though.
Yes.
Because once you start going down the roads, they're downhill.
Yes.
I know this for a fact.
Yes, but you know what?
I don't know that.
You know what? Riduzone was my saving grace. That I was like, I took my Riduzone today, so okay, I'll have a cookie and it'll be fine, and I won't think about it later.
It's all about
That
not
sounds
spiraling.
like the road of perdition, right?
It's about not spiraling out of control, though, right?
Right.
That's what Riduzone helps with. It's like, you can have one thing, maybe you're at a Christmas party, you have a drink or you have a cookie, but like you don't overdo it, and that's what makes a
I
big
noticed
difference
that. I finished the entire thing of chili cheese tater tots, and you just kind of stopped with that one. Like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
That's possible,
That's the
apparently.
answer.
It is possible. I'm here to tell you
believe
it
it.
is possible, and
Don't believe
Riduzone helps with that. Boosts your metabolism and helps you feel full so you're not craving things like chili cheese tater tots and gingerbread cookies and all the good stuff that comes with the holidays. You can go to riduzone.com right now and get a 3-pack. That's a 3-month supply, 30% off. That's $1.39 a day. That's nothing. That's peanuts. If you want to invest in your health, use promo code THEBLAZE. That's RIDUZONE.com, promo code THEBLAZE. Go get you 30% off. All right, Glenn, top story.
The Internet of Things and the trade war. Let's start with not the Internet of Things, the everything bubble. Back in 2006, I did an episode on CNN, and I called it the money bubble. And I said, we are going to head for a housing bubble. And when that thing pops, it's going to be devastating. And what they're going to do is they're going to bail everything out and start printing money. And that will lead to the last bubble of all bubbles, and I called it the money bubble. It's now officially been named the everything bubble, okay? But it's here, and it's going to pop. And we talked about it on the air today, because I haven't figured out exactly how to take and tie all of these 8 things together, these 8 topics together for next year. But they all work as one, and they're all starting to coalesce. And when you look at our debt is out of control, and we're in good times. When you look at the debt and the state of the economy here, it's pretty bad. When you look at it outside of the United States, it's devastating. We're talking on the air today, and Stu had not heard the fact, and I don't think most people have heard this fact. We're the only ones that recovered from 2008. Over in Europe, and especially China, they never recovered. They hit that 2008 bubble, it popped. We lost 50% in the stock market. Took us a couple of years, maybe 4 years, but we made it back. If you would have left your money in, you would see a 400% increase from 2008, okay? To put this into perspective of how the rest of the world is still struggling from 2008, if you had money in the stock market and it blew, and you had money in the Chinese stock market, you lost 70%, not 50, you lost 70%. And in the time between then and now, you've only regained 20% of that, okay?
Wow.
So that when it bursts around the world, it's bursting from almost the level of 2008. Imagine if we had never recovered, how bad things would be. We kind of recovered. It was all bull crap, but we recovered. So you look at that and you see what's happening. And then you look at the tension of this trade war. And I just finished a show where I bet you, and I'd love to hear your opinion, I'll bet you 90% of the audience, maybe 95, have never heard the facts that I just laid out on that show. Would you agree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if you look at what's happening with the trade war, and I'm not sure the president is fully aware of this. I think his advisors are, and it explains why his advisors are saying, who are all against trade barriers, are all saying, yes, China, do it. China right now is about to burst. That's why they're putting their people in a cage, as we talked about yesterday. But also, they are going for the 5G network, which we have, I think, talked about on this show before. It is a race to the 5G network, just like a race to AI, between us and China. If China gets it first, they are already starting to lay the plans and lay all of the deals down to be able to have all of the information from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean, going all the way across China, Russia, Middle East, Europe, all the way to Great Britain. That means they'll control all information on half of the world, 60% of the world's population. That's what we're really trying to stop, because they have not only that, but an initiative of 2025, China 2025. That's the year the 5G network's supposed to be complete, but it is also the year that they say they will be able to unplug from the world, and they will provide all things for the rest of the world. We're in a war, and they're playing for keeps, and nobody's even explaining it here to America. And you've got 6 total years of the world remaining the way it is. If we last that long, the world being the way we understand it now. Borders are going to change. Money's going to change. Business is going to change. Communications are going to change in the next 6 years. And if I may just leave you with this, if you have money in the stock market and you're my age, I'd get it the hell out of the stock market, because I don't see this returning quickly.
I was just looking at spending, just because this just irks me how Republicans control all, portions of the government, and our spending still hasn't been cut down. And I looked at a chart that showed every time our spending hit 4% or greater of GDP, when those parts in history happen. I went back, it looked like it started around FDR era. Yeah. FDR, New Deal, hey, that makes sense that they would spend so much money. They're trying to do a lot of things. They're trying to recover from an economic crash.
Mm-hmm. World War II was the next one.
World War II was the next one.
Yep.
The financial crash, the Cold War, height of the Cold War was another one.
And then the last one was 2008.
This is insane. So it's a financial crisis or war, but we're spending on the same levels as, we're over 4% right now in spending. Financial crisis and war. So why are we spending as if it's a crisis?
When the crisis hits, I believe when the crisis hits, if we're not together, we are going to be a socialist and a brave new world community of nations in the West. And the Axis powers will be run by Russia and China, and they will control much of the West, much of Europe. The rogue nations maybe are in the Middle East, and then it's us.
I just have to say really quickly, I just really love the optimism that you always bring to the show. I leave and I feel so good about what's going on in the world.
I can come just once a week, but if you're asking me what really matters, it's that, because no one is talking about it.
Go ahead.
And kind of off the point of what you were making about China and the way that they never really recovered. If you think about us in sort of the same sort of picture, our stock market has recovered, our economy has recovered in an impressive way since then, but our deficits haven't. We're in a good economy right now, and we're hitting 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 or more trillion dollars a year in deficits. These are the deficits that Barack Obama was hitting at the peak of the financial crisis. We're hitting them now with nothing else going on, and this is
almost full employment.
Almost full employment, and part of the reason is we have a president and now a party. I mean, the Republican Party is completely won with Donald Trump at this point, I think. I mean, there's a certain individual exceptions, but generally speaking, he's a populist president that has not one smidgen of libertarianism in him. So there's no cutting. Like, there's the tax cuts, we get that, but as far as the spending cuts, not only is he not succeeding in them, as Republicans have failed over and over and over again to actually succeed. He's not even trying. He's running on the opposite. He's saying, I will not touch your Medicare. I will not touch your Medicaid. Remember, Paul Ryan is all these big budgets about how we're going to cut all these programs, and we have to because it's the only rational thing to do, and they never get it done. We are now on the other side of this, where we're combining tax cuts with a guy who's promising to keep every dime, who's promising to raise military budgets, who's promising to spend $1 trillion on infrastructure, who's promising to keep pre-existing conditions in healthcare. He's promising all of those spending programs.
And he'll promise more if we go down.
And it'll get worse. I think that those deficits are going to become a big problem. We've never come back to sanity after that, and it seems to be only getting worse.
Did you guys see the news last night? There were two stories. One, the United States, according to the Pentagon, cannot compete against the hyper weapons of Russia and China. First of all, I don't believe those hyper weapons. I'll believe them when I see it. I think that is Star Wars. That's their version of Star Wars for us. The second story that came out is that China and Russia, they had that big exercise just outside of Poland, biggest ever, and only one that China has gone into. They also tested a new sort of weapon in the ionosphere back in the summer, and I barely understood it. I have to talk to one of my tech friends to see if he can explain it to me. But they're electrifying the atmosphere, which blocked out everything underneath it, the size of, I think it was half the size of Great Britain. And we don't even know what it is that they're doing, but they're doing something like that, and they're doing it together. What I fear is that we are being coaxed into a global war without anybody really talking about it, and somebody is going to say, we have to have a hyper weapon, we have to compete against what they're doing, and quite honestly, I think that's the worst thing that we could do right now, but I feel it coming.
Yeah, a lot of times those claims are just total bull. Like Russia and before them the Soviet Union have always claimed to have these like crazy new weapons.
Together.
Yeah, but I mean, it was funny. It reminds me of the robot that they said was the most advanced robot with artificial intelligence ever, and it was just leagues ahead of the West, and it turned out to be a guy in a robot suit.
In a very poorly designed robot suit, because you could very clearly see the back of his neck. Really quickly before we take a break, I do wonder, why do you think that the United States was able to overcome before, whereas China did not?
You had, overcome like in World War II?
No, 2008.
Yeah, 2008.
Because we were paying our financial institutions. We bailed out with US dollars those financial institutions. Those financial institutions did the smart thing. They invested it in the stock market, knowing that it would go up 400%. I mean, at the time, if you could have given me dollars and I was in American Express, and I knew the health of American Express, and I knew the game the government was playing, I think American Express got down to what, $26 or $6 a share, some crazy number, okay? All these big banks. If you would have then said, here is $100 million, and I just put some of it into that, how much money did you make?
I'm going to go back to it. Next time we have Jonah Goldberg on, we have to ask him about this. I remember during the crisis, in the middle of the crisis, he was talking about this, and for some reason he was talking about Citibank, and they were talking about it maybe going under. It was like super low price stock, and he said, and he's put money into it, and his rationale was, there's no way this government is going to let Citibank fall.
Yes.
And God, how much? I don't know if he kept it in there or not. I remember him saying it. I don't know how much money he put into it. He probably sold it a long time ago, but that would be fascinating to see what it could have been.
They used our money. They rigged the system. They made their money back. They sold all their junk to the Fed. The Fed's just written it off. We paid the price where the rest of the world didn't have that opportunity.
All right, talking Trump impeachment when we come back.
When you control the system, it's pretty easy to make all the rules. That's why
the Fed will take it. You're all going to take it. They were.
Got a lot more to get into, but first want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor. Sadly, all of us have reached the age at the table where things hurt.
Now, wait a minute. Now, some of us, because I have a bad war injury.
From Nam?
From Nam.
You got it from Nam?
Yeah, I got it from Nam. It was, well, I don't want to even talk about it. I'll let Jason talk about his war injuries. He goes on and on and on about his. But I started taking, it's my 1-year anniversary. I started taking Riduzone, I think this week.
Relief Factor.
I'm sorry, Relief Factor. This week, a year ago, and I did it out of desperation because I just couldn't live this way anymore. And I couldn't live with the pain. And my wife said, okay, all right, before you quit your job and do everything else, because I'm not having you in the house, you got to try this. And so I did. 3 weeks later, I ordered more, and I order it every month because it works.
Yeah.
Make it pretty easy too, right? Like it comes in the little fancy packets.
Yeah, I take it 3 times a day.
You can kind of just bring it. Yeah, that's great.
Yep, yeah, you have the packets, very easy to just grab them and go. And they give you a 3-week quick start pack. It's $20, $19.95. Try it for you, see if it works. Like 70% of the people who order that quick start pack go on to keep ordering more. It's worked for Glenn, it works for myself. The likelihood that it's going to work for you is pretty high. It's worth trying. Go to relieffactor.com or you can call 800-500-8384. But get out of pain.
Yeah, even with my injuries from the big one, WW2.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'm still out of pain.
All right, Stu. The
WW1. Okay. I got out scot-free WW1.
The impeachment of Trump.
Yes, so we all know the House is going to be taken over by Democrats.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
I can't
Lots of investigations coming your way. There is a debate, I think legitimate debate on the Democratic side, whether they're going to attempt to impeach Trump. Now, we all know that they're going to impeach him. If they want to impeach him because they think it's good politically, they will do it. If they don't, they won't. It will have nothing to do with whether the claims are valid or not. Yeah. I think we all are aware of this, and we know how these games are played. But we did kind of get a baseline of what to expect here and what would be a legitimate impeachment. And this comes from a very important source, Jerry Nadler. Now, he is going to be the guy, like, basically in charge of this if it actually does happen. He was he was on a train between New York and Washington, and unlike everybody in the media or in politics knows, if you're on an Amtrak train between those two cities, you don't say anything out loud because there's always somebody listening. There's always somebody on the train. Well, there was a conservative reporter on the train near them and heard him talking about how trying to convince people that they were going to go for impeachment and it was important for us to go to impeachment. He told something pretty similar to Jake Tapper about these campaign finance violations, that they were impeachable offenses. Ben Weingarten, a friend of ours, fresh off a 0.1 point fantasy football playoff loss last night in crushing fashion, released a story and went back and looked at Nadler's words from back in the day during the Clinton impeachment hearings. And so there's a couple of great clips here, and these are really amazing when you see he is essentially making the exact argument Trump will be making if they try to impeach Trump. He is...
because what they would impeach him on is doing something to cover up something that would be embarrassing for him and possibly very detrimental to his relationship with his wife,
right?
Because it was a sex
scandal or whatever,
and it was not a crime.
Now, of course, that was the same case with Clinton, the same case with Trump, right? So here is Jerry Nadler talking about the Clinton administration, but also what the Constitution really wants you to do when it comes to impeachment. Watch.
Impeachment is reserved under the Constitution only for abuses of presidential power that undermine the structure or functioning of government or of constitutional liberty.
Now, I don't know if does that apply to Donald Trump's sex thing? I don't think it does. Next up, what about something where you're lying about sex, a private matter, as you pointed out? Listen to Jerry's opinion on that one.
Perjury on a private matter. Perjury regarding sex is not a great and dangerous offense against the nation. Oh. It is not an abuse of uniquely presidential power. Oh. It does not threaten our form of government. It is not an impeachable offense.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So
pretty straightforward.
He was pretty clear on that one. And finally, he goes into what would the cost to our country be if some party were to use an event like this to go after a president for impeachment. Watch.
The effect of impeachment is to overturn the popular will of the voters. There must never be a narrowly voted impeachment or an impeachment supported by one of our major political parties and opposed by the other. We have no right to overturn the considered judgment of the American people.
All right. Now that gives him an out.
Does it?
Oh, of course it does.
How?
The popular vote.
Yes. He will clearly say it wasn't the popular vote.
Oh, that's 1 out of 20 points he made.
Yeah.
I mean, saying that one, I mean, he basically has eliminated all impeachment for the end of time because he said one party supports it, one party opposes it. I mean, do you think we're ever going to have a different situation than that on an impeachment? I don't know that I do.
Yes, if the president's approval rating goes down into the 20s because of the economy.
And our stories really build off of each other then, because if there is an economic collapse and we get a 2008 situation, remember George Bush hit 26% during that period. If this happens with Donald Trump, he will likely be in that same vicinity, and they will.
No. This actually goes to my point earlier that we will go socialist, because why did George Bush, you just watched this Vice documentary on the crash. Why did George Bush bail everything out?
Why did he bail everything out? Well, he was convinced that it was he didn't want to be Hoover. He wanted to be Roosevelt.
He didn't want to be Hoover. He didn't want to be the guy who was remembered as not doing anything.
Yep.
Do you think Donald Trump will want to be Hoover?
Oh no,
Or Roosevelt?
he will want to be Roosevelt times 50. I'm sure.
Exactly.
He will. I mean,
right.
he will. And again, better for worse. I think it will be these will be popular choices at the time.
Yeah.
He will come out and he will. If this happens though, his approval rating gets that low, there is a chance. Because I mean, look, there's a weird relationship between the average Republican in Congress and Donald Trump, right? Like I think they fear him, they fear his wrath, and they see that he connects with their base, so they are constantly supporting him. But if that starts to deteriorate, you will see some of these guys who have no backbone. They're not Trump guys. They're just there. Some of them will flip and go the other way if it gets bad enough. But that's a long way away.
Talking about the economy and the bubble and 2020, do you think that Joe Biden's going to run?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I do. I think
Stupid.
He keeps toying around, but not really coming out and saying
I think the beta thing is not going to happen. I mean, have you seen how they're torturing him?
But
They're just saying, there's not a lot there. There's no real plans.
Oh yeah, Beto I think is in the picture. He finished second or third in a recent poll. But Joe Biden is way up on everybody. I mean, it's his to lose. I mean, if he runs a good campaign, he can win. I still think Kamala Harris might come out of that field.
I saw a headline that she was, of course, the number one contender in a poll done only by women of color.
I did see that by a lot.
Yes.
By a very large margin.
Which is kind of, concerning to me, because that just shows identity politics would be working with that subset of
it does work,
citizens.
Especially it works with everybody. I think unless you're thinking about it, right? You have to be aware of it for it not to work on you. But I think Democratic voters, it's like the only thing they talk about really at this point.
But in a way, we don't talk about it. But you wave that flag, and we line up.
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
It's different.
Yeah, it's not identity politics, but it's.
It's identity with the country.
It's actually good news, I think, that Joe that little lunchbox is so ahead, I think.
Middle class Joe?
Middle class Joe.
Creepy Uncle Joe.
Right, the insert nickname. But it means that, the people like Kamala Harris or Bernie Sanders, they're maybe the left is not going so hardcore, to the extreme.
I think they think themselves they did this with Hillary. They did Joe Biden already with Hillary. Because
would you consider, Glenn, Joe being basically a Macron? Being the empty suit that will not do a thing?
No, I would not consider him Hillary.
No.
All right, got to take a break. Back in a minute.
I think Biden has more of a chance than people recognize, too.
I think so, too.
Biden Beto ticket.
That would be very
good.
If you have not yet checked it out, you have got to go to Blaze TV, blazetv.com. Remember, we merged with CRTV, and we've got the biggest conservative names all under one roof.
Great.
Really exciting.
Plus
you got to
us.
go check it out.
Is
Use the promo code NewsChristmas. Get $20 off of a year-long subscription.
Eric Bolling's on tomorrow, isn't he? On
I
radio?
think he is, yeah.
It's going to be a fascinating hour with Eric Bolling, who's also on the Blaze TV.
He is, along with Mark Levin, Steven Crowder.
Everybody.
All the big names. You got to check it out. I don't mean to brag, but we're pretty awesome. We'll see you in overtime.
Kind of a big deal.